The East Asia Soft shoot 'em up ensemble continues to assemble with Red Raptor, the latest one of their ports over to console. This is a vertical shoot 'em up inspired by the genre classics of the 90s, but I would argue that this game probably sits in the much more earlier 90s vibe compared to the ones that we think of arcade-wise from like Cave and things like that later on. And that's because the graphic fidelity of this game is, I'm not going to say poor, but there's not detail here where sometimes you'd expect detail to be. And the other thing that I'd say is that there's only a couple of different variants of weapons that you have, and the enemies are quite basic. You get certain same types appearing over and over again, and yeah, it feels like an early 90s shoot 'em up rather than a mid to late 90s, which is where I think the real boon of this era came from. This game is also built around a upgrade system gameplay loop. So the ship it gives you at the very beginning, unless you're an absolute god tier player, you will not be getting to the end of the game with. There's only 5 stages, but your ship is really, really poor because it only has 2 hits and you die, and it also only has 1 bullet shooting out in front of you and this kind of mega giga laser attack, which I felt was significantly underpowered. And after the first 2 playthroughs where I attempted it and kind of went, oh, is that it? I didn't really use that laser beam afterwards. The whole reason behind this, though, is because you collect coins whenever you're killing enemies' ships, and you then spend those to upgrade your ship. And I'm sure maybe the laser becomes much more bigger and powerfuler if you continually upgrade on it. But I found that I was having to upgrade firstly on those health points, so that I actually had the ability to be shot and still stay in the game. But you could also upgrade all of your base attacks as well, and I found that I was getting much more bang for my buck doing that than spending things on the extra weapons on the side. And that's because the main weapon that you've got is just a single bullet, but you can basically make it wider and therefore not have to be nearly as precise with your actions as you upgrade that main weapon. It just puts on more and more bullets. You can then upgrade the general damage of your ship as well as the health, and you can add on 4 little mini ships that will fly around you as well that will then give off additional bullets. There are a couple of power-ups that you can get along the way. 3, in fact. One gives you a spread shot, which I found infinitely helpful, particularly on boss battles, because boss battles have a real habit of having a direct, straight down laser that will shoot at you right next to its hit point. And so, again, investing in that, putting your weapon wider and having a spread shot means that you can just sit to the side of the laser and not have to duck in and out. And so it was quite, not cheesable, but it was just a safer way to actually complete the game and get through all of the levels and kill the bosses. The bosses themselves are a particular highlight of the game. They have multiple forms, each one has a very different look and feel and attack pattern, but they are quite predictable and it's nothing that you've not seen elsewhere. So particularly once you've been through the game a few times and you've got a few upgrades under your belt, the earlier bosses don't really pose much of a threat at all. And so because there's a real spike, I think, on World 4 and 5 in terms of the amount of things coming towards you and the amount of firepower that you have to avoid and dish out, those first 3 levels kind of end up being a bit like meh, going through again as you kind of bundle your way through. And so the bosses do lose their shine through this repetitive action of just having to replay for coins to upgrade to get to the end. The last thing that I'd say is that outside of the main game, which is where you'll spend all of your time if you're doing trophies and achievements only, you then unlock an arcade mode, and that allows you to play through the game again, but with a high score online leaderboard attached to it. And that's quite cool because you get the same experience every single time. Nothing is ever changed up in any way. So you are genuinely trying to see who is the best in terms of who can survive what in the arcade mode, which is quite cool. This game took me about 75 minutes to platinum. I wasn't particularly going at a hard pace either, and I had lots of upgrades still left to spare. So if you're a bit worried that actually bullet hell games aren't your strength, but you'd quite like to go for the platinum, this is probably one of the easier ones to do it on, because you can upgrade your way out of a skill problem. And I think it's okay. It's definitely not one of East Asia Soft's stronger ports, but it doesn't do anything wrong either. It's just very middle of the road. Rate and review over on higherplanegames.com. Hope that was helpful. Take care. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network. a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/HigherPlay Network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.